Thank you for joining us here. Today we're going to be repairing a PlayStation 5 dual USB port. So it's two separate USB ports we're going to be changing out today. And first I like to add some flux and leaded solder to all the legs and pins. Next, I heat the legs and pins until they're loose. Caution, if you try this and damage your PS5, contact me to see if I can repair it for you. There will be a link in the description. First thing I like to do is go around the outside of the legs and get the 4 pins on each individual USB port. What I like to do is soak each of the pins, each of the legs, with leaded solder. Get them nice and soaked. I add flux as is needed. And I take my time. I also use the preheater, or what some call the rework station, to add some extra heat to the area to maintain a consistent temperature across the PS5 motherboard. This allows my iron to not have to work so hard while I'm focusing the heat of my iron on the pin or leg itself. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time to go around the outside as well as to do the inside pin. But we go over them again and again, ensuring they're loose. We want to add a little bit of pressure to the legs themselves and to the pin to just see how loose they are. We'll know when the PS5 USB port is ready to be removed by the light amount of pressure that we're going to be adding to the leg. My focus in the beginning, like I said, is on the outermost legs because they're the largest and most heat resistive. Next, I begin to focus on the innermost pins, which are smaller and less heat resistive. As you can see, the first USB port has already fallen out. Okay, there's port number 2 gone. Again, you're going to know when it's ready to come out because as you're putting pressure on the pins and the legs, you're going to see them moving. And as they move very easily, that is your sign that it's time to come out. Now that we've got those USB ports removed, we're going to go ahead and begin to remove the solder that is inside the holes. Now we're going to do this simply by using solder wick and flux, and we're going to go to every hole. This takes a little bit of time. You got to be careful. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to damage the circuit board by putting too much pressure from your iron onto the wick and then scraping off the green layer, which, you know, it's going to be big problems because then you're going to have to add something to the green layer to make it non-conductive. And we'll talk about that in another video, but today we're focusing on the ports themselves. The next thing I want to mention is some of these pins, particularly in the top row in the middle, that pin, that hole rather, is more heat resistive than any of the other holes. And so you want to take your time with that pin. And that is the third one in the middle. Either way, either side, from either side. Third one in the middle. That one requires a little extra heat to get the solder out. So take your time, don't be in a hurry. You're going to need to make sure all that solder is gone. And the one I'm working on right now is the one I'm talking about. This one, the solder didn't come out right away, and so I'm giving a little extra heat. Sometimes the flux looks like the solder hasn't been removed completely, so I use the tweezers to ensure that I removed it at all. And I'm talking about the solder itself from within the hole. I'll poke my tweezer into the hole to ensure there's no more solder inside that hole. Again, go over each and every hole as is necessary, removing all of the solder, and use your flux as is necessary. In every condition, it'll always be different. No two USB ports are going to be the same. Here we're going to be cleaning the newly removed port and getting all the residue off. We're going to be prepping it for the installation. But first, we're going to get the second side taken care of here. Removing the solder from the holes of the second USB port. Alright, looks good. Add a little bit more flux. Go over the holes one more time. I like to go over them again and again just to make sure there is no solder around the outer edges of the joints. Because if there is solder around the edges, it'll change the temperature at which you need to heat up the new solder, because you're contaminating the new solder with old solder. A lot of people don't understand this. They fail to clean correctly, and then they don't understand why they're having problems soldering something back on. So remove all of your solder and ensure that you clean up your area before soldering in the new port. Okay, let's begin. Let's add some solder. First, I do the legs. Just add a little bit of solder, put some pressure on the leg to allow the solder to go down in between the leg and the hole. We want that solder to get in between the legs and the hole because it's going to create a solid joint in the board itself. This way, when people are plugging things in and pulling things out, like their controllers and microphones, you know, it's going to be strong, and they should last a long while. Unless the console is dropped, that is, and then you're going to see the ports breaking out. Now, I do want to mention that we have several videos of ripped pads, pulled pads, where I go in depth performing surgery on PlayStations and Xboxes, where people have dropped their consoles and they've ripped. I've done up to 13 pads, 13 ripped traces, where I've had to go through and repair almost every trace on the board. And I do it successfully every time. And we have several videos. Some are in the works, some are already made for you to watch and see the type of work, the quality of work that we do. We take our time, and we like to do it right the first time. You will see me going back and forth a lot, as I like to ensure that the joints are good, they're solid, all of the pins are completely soldered in. As you're seeing here, we're going over the second row of USB port pins, and we're almost done here. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.